Welcome to This Week in the Future. First piece of news we have is the Technology Innovation Institute, or TII, has released Falcon 180B, a fully open source LLM. TII is an Abu Dhabi government-funded research institution, and they work in advanced technology areas, AI, quantum computing, stuff like that. Falcon 180B is the new highest scoring open source model, beating Llama 2 on many counts, and it actually rivals proprietary models from Google OpenAI. It gets pretty close to matching PaLM 2 on most benchmarks, and it tends to sit between GPT 3.5 and GPT 4 on benchmarks. 180B is a lot of parameters. If you want to use this model yourself, you're going to need to make a significant technology investment because, let's say, just for inference, training is its own kind of beast, fine-tuning another one. But for inference at the optimal resolution level, you're looking at about a 640 gigabyte of video memory requirement, or 8 A100 80 gigabyte GPUs. That's over $100,000 in hardware necessary to deploy this model. So it's not cheap. Falcon 180B is intentionally not fine-tuned for any use case. It still scores quite well. So we anticipate that with fine-tuning, we're going to see some significant improvements in a lot of different use cases. This model is excellent for companies that are seeking to really maximize self-hosted and probably fine-tuned model performance. And I would say, particularly for research, this is a big deal because really high performing models, you could call this a frontier model, maybe even, are difficult to study because they tend to be entirely proprietary and are very expensive to use. For research, where cost is really the primary limiting factor, having access to a model like this to study and experiment with, while still very expensive to run inference and run tests on due to the model size, it's certainly going to be cheaper than the existing frontier proprietary models. So we hope to see soon some excellent research surrounding Falcon 180B that will help us better understand the performance, uses, limitations of these super high parameter, high performance models. Next up is a paper from Google Research regarding RLHF, which is reinforcement learning through human feedback, and the viability of RLAIF to supplement or replace RLHF. RLHF, little background, is the process by which a supervised fine-tuned model is taken to the next level by getting a ton of feedback from humans, from which, through reinforcement learning, the model will tune its outputs to better match what humans like. So this makes models way more useful. RLHF is what brought GPT-3 to the next level to ChatGPT. These kinds of processes are really expensive, very time consuming. So companies are looking at the viability of RLAIF, which is replacing the human with some kind of off-the-shelf LLM that's already been trained for providing that tuning feedback. And there's something promising here. So this is a Google research paper. PaLM 2L was used as the AI feedbacker, and the base model was PaLM 2 extra small. I imagine they chose this model size because it's the cheapest to run. And results show that there may be some viability here. So essentially, human evaluators definitely prefer RLHF and RLAIF summaries over just the baseline supervised fine-tuned model. And the differences in preference between RLAIF versus RLHF are not statistically significant, which tells us that RLAIF is about equally preferred to RLHF by human evaluators in this context. I think a couple caveats here. PaLM 2 extra small was the baseline model here. It was the model used for the RLAIF and RLHF. It's a pretty small parameter count model compared to some of the other huge proprietary models out there today, and even open source models as well. So there may be some limitations there just in terms of parameter count and potential intelligence learning capability. Also, this is the only model used, right? So in this context where PaLM 2L was used as the feedbacker and PaLM 2 XS was used as the sort of baseline, yeah, RLAIF kind of performs similarly to RLHF. But think about, what if you're using even smarter model? Can you really tune a GPT-4 level model? Do you need necessarily a smarter model, a higher parameter counter, better data set, higher performance model to RLAIF train your smaller model? hard to say. Additionally, it was a relatively small task evaluation data set used, and that paper acknowledges this and says that it's up to future papers to test more tasks and evaluate more tasks against the two reinforcement learning types to see if this is really a viable approach. The takeaway is that RLAIF might work. To what extent is not really yet understood. But if it does work, then that would be a significant accelerator to bringing high quality LLMs that are really helpful through the development process to users. Another piece of news, pretty controversial news, Pentagon is said to be planning a, quote, vast AI fleet. The news here is that the US plans to spend hundreds of millions of dollars developing network of AI-powered technology. That's drones, autonomous systems, et cetera. Things that are, quote, small, smart, cheap. This is really interesting. I also think we need to put this in perspective. So the US plans to spend hundreds of millions of dollars. We don't know quite how much, but for example, the cost of a single F-22 Raptor fighter jet is $143 million. So that's hundreds of millions of dollars right there. The total budget for the Pentagon this year is $715 billion. Hundreds of millions in AI-powered tech is really just a tiny slice of the Pentagon's defense budget. It's possible that this is just an experiment, right? This technology is really new, but it does show that the Pentagon is experimenting with AI technology. We are likely to see the spend on these kinds of AI-powered tech increase significantly in coming years. Really quick piece of news, Hugging Face, which recently partnered with NVIDIA and raised a huge amount of money, has become one of the more significant players in the AI space. They've just released Training Cluster as a service. So if you want to train, fine-tune, host a model, and you don't have the resources in-house, Hugging Face is another option for those kinds of high-load problems. Last piece of news is about a week old now, but I still think it's really important. I want to bring it up because we've talked in the past about U.S. Copyright Office regarding generative AI. So until I think October 17th, there is a public comment period, meaning that you can write in with your opinion regarding Gen AI and copyright to the U.S. Copyright Office, and they will read what you have sent them, and they will take that into account when they're making their decisions going forward. So that's stuff like how AI models should use copyrighted data in training, whether AI generated material can be copyrighted even without a human involved, how copyright liability would work with AI. So if you have opinions, you should write them in. I know I have opinions. I will be writing to the U.S. Copyright Office. It's an excellent opportunity to make your voice be heard and share your perspective on this problem. That's all for this week. If you enjoyed, tune in next week for more. Thanks, y'all.